Welcome to Finance Dojo. We aim to be the best personal finance educational channel you ever need. Click that subscribe button and the notification bell right now so you won't miss out. Imagine spending $1 million to be happy. We're unhappy till we get to this amount. Let's imagine that we want happiness and feel lacking without it. We've so far saved $100,000, which may seem like a lot. But if we take our happiness requirement into account, we're $950,000 in debt. Say we define happiness as the ability to overcome challenges. We'll feel anxious, depressed, and insecure. We worry that we won't get what we want, that we'll lose what we have, and that things won't turn out the way we intended. Minimalist abundance is a better choice. Our needs must be fulfilled for us to be content. We have to lessen our needs if we want plenty to come swiftly. The less you want, the more you have. When we have plenty, we don't worry as much about gaining and losing, and we don't worry as much about missing out or being changed. This video explores the advantages of being content with less, how this promotes a careful lifestyle, and how a minimalist outlook may promote abundance rather than scarcity. When happiness is in scarcity, we must strive hard for it. Our criteria for happiness may include having a nearly ideal relationship, money, social standing, and material belongings. It's tougher to be happy when the happiness requirements are more explicit. Even small changes can make us unhappy, especially if our happiness depends on things that can change quickly. For example, a person seeking the perfect life could want a perfect home, perfect family, perfect career, perfect social network, etc. All factors are necessary for satisfaction. If one isn't perfect, their happiness collapses. As the reverse rule shows, the more we want, the less we have. So the less we want from the world, the more abundance we'll have. Abundance means having more than enough. But when is it enough? A few people never have enough. Others have little need. Our idea of enough changes over time. As Epicurus once said, if you wish to make a man happy, add not unto his riches, but take away from his desires. Here are a few strategies for focusing on our goals so that we might move from scarcity to abundance. Number 1. The value of restraint. We talked about Epicurus' minimalism in a previous video. Epicurus identified 3 categories of desires. 1. Natural and necessary desires like food, shelter, and rest. 2. Natural and unnecessary desires like expensive food and clothes. 3. Vain desires, power, wealth, and renown. In summary, Epicurus held that we should prioritize the first, which are essentially and simple to meet, and steer clear of the latter, which are unnecessary and impossible to satisfy. For example, videos, games, and music available nowadays are really enjoyable. Despite the abundance, overindulgence makes us unhappy since it makes our senses less sensitive and makes us need more stimulation. The more we need, the less we'll have. We wouldn't disempower ourselves if we pick our needs properly. The Stoics suggested a virtue called moderation to keep our desires in check so they don't control us. Modesty and self-control are aspects of moderation. If we can cultivate these virtues, we will be able to control when and how many pleasures we enjoy, keeping them abundant. Number 2. Gratitude for what we have. People often crave more than they already possess. We trade potential resources of happiness for unfulfilled desires and pain. Our possessions are a source of happiness. Is anything simpler than what we have? Is there something better than what we have? If we don't value what we already have, we'll be unhappy and forced to search elsewhere. If we stop concentrating on what we lack, happiness is a bargain. Gratitude makes our things more valuable. For example, many people think their homes are too small, old, or ugly. They have a place to live, even if it's small and cozy, and old isn't always unfit for living. Even though there are bigger, newer, better-looking houses available, they have shelter. Many people live in poor surroundings or are homeless. Any home, in comparison, is a blessing. When we move from being unhappy to being grateful, we start to value and love the things we used to take for granted. Not only does gratitude provide you with free happiness, but it also helps you save money. A new home would have made us just as content, but the cost would have been far higher. Number 3. Examining the cost of our needs. Needs to cost money. Cheap things are abundant, while expensive things are scarce. It's simpler to purchase inexpensive items than pricey ones, but difficulty varies depending on the situation. For example, wealthy individuals may quickly purchase costly watches, but poor people may need to save for years. The cost of the watch stays the same, but the wealthy pay more than the underprivileged. When picking needs, we should think about how much they cost. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it, according to American philosopher Henry David Thoreau. We should always question ourselves, how much of my life would I give up before pursuing any desires? How many hours of labor are needed to complete this purchase? How big of an impact does this work have on my health? Things that don't need much to work are cheap. Items that need a lot of life can cost a lot. Focusing on simple, inexpensive requirements creates abundance. This abundance is due to a lot of resources or a small need. If we need to be on our toes, getting a pricey mortgage might not be a good idea. Even if we buy our dream house, it may cost more than it is worth. Number 4. Avoiding long-term debt. When we have debt, we feel stressed because we have to pay it back. The mind is one of the most distressing, annoying, and demanding creditors we have because of our desires. How is the mind a creditor? When we want something, we go into debt. We went from being happy and not having any debts because we didn't want to pay them off to be in the red. If we don't give in to this impulse, the mind keeps bugging us like a debt collector. When we are hungry, we must eat. We have to sleep off our debt. When we are tired, most places in the world have plenty of food and places to sleep. So satisfying these desires is easy. When we become fixated on long-term goals, real issues start to surface. By doing this, we create long-term debt, which is a feeling of lack that only goes away when the desire is met, leaving us feeling incomplete for a long time. For example, unrequited love is one such situation. Imagine being in love with someone who doesn't feel the same way about you. You'll end up miserable if you can't accept this and keep expecting anything in return. Your mind has made someone's romantic interest a requirement for happiness. You won't be debt-free until your mind is content, which might never happen. So relying on hope to make you happy is not a smart idea. We shouldn't let our happiness depend on dreams and wishes for the future, especially if they take a long time or never come true. Instead, we should focus on finding joy in the present. Enjoying the here and now doesn't mean we shouldn't have long-term goals. It just means that we appreciate the small things and don't let our happiness depend on achieving the big. We can be happy with very little as long as it's enough. This implies we must battle our longing for the world, not the world itself. There are 2 basic methods to produce abundance. The first way is to get more of what we want, but when we do that, we become dependent on things outside of our control. The second is by placing a chain on our desires to make the present more gratifying. The less we want from the world, the more full the world seems. Therefore, the less you want, the more you have. As always, this video is for educational purposes only and not financial advice. You should always do your own research and speak to a financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.